The death toll from a heavy storm that struck 3 southern African countries this week has now risen to more than 70. This as emergency teams are rushing against time to repair damage to infrastructure and help to rescue tens of thousands of victims. Tropical storm Anna made landfall in Madagascar this week before ploughing into Mozambique and Malawi, bringing torrential rain. Let's talk more about this then with Professor Anthony Turton. He's with the University of the Free State's Center for Environmental Management. Prof, a very good evening to you. Welcome to News at Prime. Have we seen the worst of the storm? Is it fully behind us?
I'm not sure that one can predict these things as accurately as that. What I can say that is this is not the last of this type of storm that we're going to be seeing in the future.
Prof, I think our audio connection to you is fading slightly, but let's persevere a moment longer and see if we're fine now. You're saying this is not the last of storms of this severity. Is it purely due to climate change, as some have suggested?
Okay, weather is an inherently complex thing. There's so many different...
All right. Professor Turton, my apologies. Can we just dial you back, please, sir, and re-establish the audio connection so we can continue this important conversation, I beg your pardon, about Tropical Storm Anna, which has torn through southern Africa. Over 70 people now believed to have been killed by the storm in Malawi, Madagascar. Prof, if you can hear me now, let's pick up on the point you're making about why it is that we're likely to see more of such extreme weather.
Yes, well, as I said, weather is an inherently complex thing, and there have been a number of studies done. So, I mean, I'll just give you an example. Right now, as we are speaking about this thing in the Indian Ocean, there's a similar event taking place in the North Atlantic, also of a similar magnitude, and this is one of many that's happening in the North Atlantic area. So we've seen both in the Indian Ocean and the North Atlantic Ocean an increase in this intensity of these type of storms over the last couple of years. Whether this is a climate change related thing or not is perhaps a debatable matter, but certainly we know that weather moves globally in all kinds of cycles, and we can state with some confidence that in South Africa, from a study that was done recently by the Water Research Commission, they showed that rainfall patterns from 1950 to 1982 showed a wetter than average period, and from 1982 until about 2013, around about there, 2014, it showed a drier than average period. So we've got the cyclicity in the falling of rain, and it's quite possible, although we don't yet have enough data to suggest that we might be going through another transition now and going back to a wetter than average decade or period of time. So, we need lots of data to make that kind of accurate assessment, but this is what appears to be happening.
And what more do we know about frequency? I recall 2019 when Mozambique was again affected. That was about Cyclone Idai. We also saw Zimbabwe getting quite a battering from that as well.
Yes, in fact, it's, I think last year, the last season we had, they actually ran out of alphabetical names to give these things. They recycled back to A again because these things are growing in their intensity and in their frequency. So I think it's fairly safe to say that with the warmer temperatures that we're having, I mean, at the moment, just take another example. In South Africa, as we're talking right now, we have this bizarre situation where we have this big storm in the Indian Ocean taking place, but at the very same time, we have a situation where about 90% of our dams are full in the country, which is a very, very unusual occurrence. And then we have the same situation where many of the coastal cities right now have got all sorts of problems with supplying water to their people because of the turbidity of the water that comes from the rivers as a result of the runoff. So these are all three completely different types of events, but they all speak to the increasing intensity of rainfall events. And rainfall is but a small part of what we call weather, and weather is a small part of what we call climate.
Is there any explanation in science, Prof, as to why South Africa has been spared when it comes to the likes of Tropical Storm Anna and indeed Idai 3 years ago now?
Yes, when it comes to these things, there are two sides of the equation. The one side is how big is the event, how violent is the event, how destructive is the event. On the other hand, you've got the the sort of softer side was how resilient is the local community, how resilient are the institutions and the engineered structures, how are they able to absorb this impact. And those two factors play a role in assessing the risk for these kind of areas. And in general, it is accepted that most of the areas that are hit are relatively poor, they're relatively under-endowed in terms of infrastructure, and many of them have also got relatively weak institutions, because institutions matter in this regard, because institutions enable forecasting and the accurate communication to people on the ground as to what to do and when to do what they need to do.
So given the limited resources, either due to a lack of funds or a leadership problem in some of these countries that are indeed home to quite a large number of poor resident citizens, shall we say, what can be done in the short and long term to limit the extent of risk from these extreme weather events?
Well, that's a very complex question to answer, because it's all climate related at the end of the day. And the only way that we can do anything about the climate is to reach a global consensus that we need to do something about the climate. And as you know, at this point in time, we're not really reaching that global consensus. There's a lot of noise, a lot of denialism about climate change, etc. And this, frankly, is not helpful. So to a large extent, the individual can do very little about it. What we can do as a nation is to increase the strength of our institutions, improve the ability to forecast, improve the disaster management. But all of these are responsive things. These are ex post factors. After the case, the disasters happen. What do we do now? So, but for us to start preventing it or to mitigate it, this ultimately depends on our capacity as a global community to reach consensus about the need to do something differently.
Professor Anthony Turton from the University of the Free State, thankful for your time tonight, sir.